Welcome to video 2, where I present the things that you really signed on for. Physical self-defense application. Practicing them, learning them, and attempting to apply them if that situation should happen gives you a much greater chance of successfully negating that attack than doing nothing at all. Welcome to video 2, where I present the things that you really signed on for. Physical self-defense application. There's things you need to understand about martial technique before we start to study them. And that is that there are hundreds of them, but we'll only be doing a handful of them here because it's difficult to learn through a video, so I don't want to put too much on your plate. Also, they don't work exactly as they do when we practice them. We practice them in a controlled fashion. We don't want anybody to get hurt. We might simulate a strike first before applying the technique, but in reality, those techniques will only work amidst the chaos of a confrontation. A confrontation is always going to be ugly and chaotic. You don't want it to be uglier, but you do want it to be more chaotic. It's in that confusion of flailing about and attacking at his eyes or his throat or just scratching at him that you'll find an opportunity to use one of the techniques. So, when you find a partner, find someone who is relaxed and not a macho jerk who's trying to show you how the techniques can't be done. Because if he's expecting the techniques, of course they can't be done. You need someone who's willing to simulate that element of surprise. Also understand that there's no guarantee that any of these will work. If a man attacks you with the attempt to rape you, sadly, he will probably succeed. And if you pay attention to these techniques and practice them, and he attempts to rape you, he will probably succeed. If you practice them over and over again, he might still succeed. If you sign up for a live course and get more detailed instruction, he might succeed. If you study Kung Fu diligently for years and a man attacks you with the attempt to rape you, there's a good chance he'll succeed. It seems hardly worth it, doesn't it? But did you notice what I was doing with my hands there? Bringing them in represented the likelihood that he would succeed. With every step you take, you reduce the chance of him raping you. So, my advice, reduce it as much as you can. The good news is, the simplest technique is also the most effective. Attack the eyes. You've probably heard from your mothers to attack the testicles. They said something like, just kick him in the family jewels, that'll stop him. That probably won't work. And here's why. Did you notice how easily I blocked that? And you're thinking, yeah, but you told her to attack. You knew it was coming. We all know it's coming. We all know that women are going to attempt to kick us in the groin. And a man will protect that area like it's Solomon's tomb, like it's the Pentagon, like it's Fort Knox. The chances of you successfully hitting him there are pretty slim. The eyes are an easier target. And that can be effective no matter what the situation. Not all attempted rapes are from walking down the street, nor even from being alone with a man in his home when you didn't expect it. Sometimes they come from intimate moments, where you were willing to go so far, perhaps kissing or making out with a man, and he didn't understand when it was time to stop. Attacking the eye in that situation is actually quite easy because he's in so close to you. My suggestion, you say stop, and you say stop again. You shouldn't have to say stop a third time or a fourth time. If you've said it a second time and you were loud and enunciated, and he doesn't know that it's time to stop, he's attempting to rape you. Take that thumb and press it into his eye. And even puncture it.
You have a problem with that?
I know that sounds disgusting and horrible. But you have to be willing to puncture a man's eye if you want to be sure that he's not going to rape you. And if you can't do that, it's unlikely that any of these other techniques will help. One possible grab is a straight grab. And the reaction that most women have to this is to try and pull away. But if the man is bigger and stronger, that's not likely to work. It's a useless struggle. So instead, I want to aim for the weakest part of his hand. Now to do that, it's going to be more effective if I put this foot forward, the opposite foot from the hand. And if I circle towards the weakest part, the thumb, of course, is weaker than the rest of the hand. And I can even create a gap, like a gateway, that's even weaker. You can't hold me with empty space. So I turn that. As I do that, I also like to move forward, which seems counterproductive, but it actually weakens his grip when I move that toward him. And I can see the opening now. So I'm going to do that as much as I can. Notice it's not pulling out or just trying to dart this way. It's the circle that does the work. And if I do that quickly, that might be enough. However, what can be even better is to control him somewhat to ensure that he doesn't continue his attack. So I will circle up and grab the hand. Some people prefer to do it with the thumbs right behind the hand bones. I like to take that fraction of a second to bring this hand over top because it allows my tricep to get involved in the action, which makes me a little stronger. So again, this foot forward, I turn upward and grab that hand, and from here, I lock down right beside his elbow. That's only half the technique. But before I go any further, I want to point out a couple of mistakes that are common. One is to try to pull him down from here. Don't try to pull him down. And two, don't try to push him down. That's not going to work either. I need to turn into that locking position, and from there, I let my feet do the rest of the work. Some of you have played basketball, and you know the rule that when you catch the basketball and you've stopped with it, you're only allowed to pivot on one foot. That's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to lock that hand into position, and you're going to let your feet do the work by pivoting away. And the result should look like this. And from there, of course, I can kick and run away. Or I can hit him with a chair and run away. Whatever's available to keep him on the ground so that I have an opportunity to run away from him. Number one. I'm going to quickly demonstrate another technique that can be done from the straight grab, but it's not one that I want you to learn. That might seem odd, but it's a complicated one. It looks easy enough, but it requires a certain level of sensitivity. The only reason I'm showing it to you is because I want you to understand a specific concept involved with it. And the concept is easily seen with this technique. Then we're going to take that concept and apply it to the next technique that I, in fact, want you to learn. So from that straight grab, instead of going in this direction, I'm going to go the other direction, clockwise. And I'm going to move toward his face with it as I catch it in this hand. From there, I lock onto this wrist, and I use the hand like a lever to do that. Again, I move in, I catch, I lock, and I lever it. That means I'm not pulling, I'm not pushing, I'm just twisting. And that creates a pivot point right here. And that's the part I want you to focus on. That I want to create a little pivot, a little hinge there that I can use his hand, so that I can use his hand like a lever. That's important because the next technique is from a cross grab. And I'm going to use that same principle, but it's harder to see. If he grabs a hold of me this way, I latch on. Now that seems odd. That seems counterproductive to make him grab me tighter. But the technique needs for you to have a firm grip on him in that way for it to work. Also, it can add a certain emotional benefit to you. If he grabs me as I'm trying to walk away, and I suddenly turn and grab him back, that changes the whole psychology of the situation, doesn't it? So when he grabs, I put this hand here, and I snake this hand over top. You'll notice my elbow goes down when I do that, and his goes up, or at the very least, stays in the mid-range. Snake it. In fact, the technique is called snake entwining. And if you ever watch snakes when they climb branches, this being a branch, they don't do this. They use soft, supple movements, sensitive to the branch, or in this case, to his arm. Just a soft, supple movement where I reach over top. This is locked in place, the elbow goes down, this comes over top, and by doing a simple torquing technique, not pulling and not pushing, a simple technique to rotate on that pivot point, he will drop down. So, in its full movement, I try to walk away, and I can finish with the number one technique that I showed you earlier, or try some obvious techniques that might be there. And of course, run away. Perhaps I'm getting grabbed from behind, this double wrist grab. And my reaction might be to try and pull away. That's not really going to work. There are a couple of options here. But both of them should start with a sting of some kind. Maybe I'm trying to stomp on his foot or smash my head against his nose, right? Whatever I need to do. But when I follow it up, one method is to try and step to the side and bring my hands up. Now, if I just try to bring my hands up, I'm not going to have any luck. Even if Colin wasn't bigger and stronger than me, he's got gravity on his side. I can't possibly lift my hands. What I do is I creep my arms up alongside my body. So as I step sideways, this arm comes up the body and I come to here. Right? So, to be clear, I slide up and it's harder for him to hold on to. What I should also make mention of is that there's a great finish to this, where I lock his elbow and put him through. You don't need to learn that. Let's be clear about that. Instead, you can just get away from him now. That might be enough. So again, after smashing and kicking, I step to the side and slide this arm up along the body and then push away in any way that I can. Now, if that still seems a little complicated to you, there's techniques that might be more effective. If I bring both arms up along the side of my body and shoot them forward, it becomes hard for him to get a hold of. Then maybe I throw my elbows in there. Think, well, that might not be effective. Watch what happens if I step back quickly while doing that same technique. Gives me more opportunity to escape. Of course, he might not grab you by the wrist. In fact, more likely he's going to grab you about the waist. Now, when that happens, once again, there's a variety of techniques, right? Still, I can start with stomping on the feet or slamming my elbows into his head, and then pull off one of these techniques. Probably the simplest one to learn in a video lesson is simply sitting down. That might seem too simple. Admittedly, Colin's going with it a bit because we don't want to make it rough and tumble when we might get hurt falling into the wall or into one of these weapons. But the technique is merely sliding into what we call a horse stance, right? A horse stance as in I'm riding a horse. Not lower than that, but not too high so that it doesn't affect his center of gravity at all. I want to slide into it somewhat low and through his center line. That's important. If
I don't slide through his center line, nothing happens. I need to move through that center so that he's off balance. Right now, his toes are already up in the air. I might grab his knee or his foot, or try to smash him, or grab his fingers as he goes. All sorts of vicious things I can do. But the most important of them is to upset his center of gravity by dropping low into that horse stance through his center line. Elbows, step through. Elbows, horse stance. Okay, good. Oh no, Colin has me in a headlock. Whatever will I do? The obvious choice is to grab the testicles. But a man can position his hips to make it hard to do that. But what's easy to get a hold of is this line that runs up the inside of his leg. I might only get it down here near the knee. The higher up I go, the better. And the smaller the piece of skin I can pinch, the better. That will cause him to let go because it's excruciatingly painful. Sorry, buddy. Now, when I do that, I want to immediately kick at his knee or his ankle following that move. But there are other options. I can reach up and grab by the chin and pull back. Now that's not going to work against a strong guy unless I also drive my hips forward and up as I do it. And even then it can be tough. So what might be more effective is actually getting your finger inside the cheek and tearing that push hook. You can also do it inside the nostril, or better yet, the optical cavity. Again, go at that eye, won't do it today. Crank back while driving your hips forward. Boom. Another method is to go for the nose instead. Hold on just a moment. We all know this is a sensitive point. Pushing in hurts a little bit. Pushing up hurts a little bit. Pushing in and up at a 45-degree angle becomes very painful. And then if you grind it, he'll probably let go. I don't like demonstrating this one much, but I want you to see. So I'm holding on tight, she comes underneath, and I let go. And it's no fun, but now you know. Recently, a young friend of mine told of an encounter where a young man pressed both hands on either side of her against a wall, and he did this at a party, thusly. That's just stupid. There's so many ways to attack right now, including, of course, the groin attack, striking up under the chin, finger into the eye, all of which can be made even worse if I knock one of his arms away so he's falling into me as I do it. You are perfectly within your right to respond in such a dangerous method, because this is an attack. And let's be honest, in my opinion, any man that would do this to you at a party certainly is a man who would try to rape you in private. An equally disgusting but more intelligent attacker would press your arms up against the wall. You might not feel like you have a lot of options in this situation. If I try to push against Colin, I'm not going to get very far. If I were to move both hands in a circle towards my body, that will lessen his grip, but it'll move him into me. So that's not very useful. Instead, either clockwise or counterclockwise, move your arms in the same circle. When sliding along the wall like that, making that circle, you have more strength. And he's probably going to let go, which gives you an opportunity to fight back. But even if he doesn't, he has made himself vulnerable and easier for me to fight against and to get away. And this can be done on the floor as well. If someone's holding you down and you circle their hands in one direction, they become vulnerable to an attack. Of course, it's not as simple as just doing that and getting out. There's going to be a lot of fighting and kicking and scratching, but it will open up the possibility. His hands will no longer be in a position to control you as much. When you're fighting from here, it's going to require a whole lot of activity. Right? I can circle one way and make my opponent vulnerable, but I still have to kick and scratch and bump and move as much as I can. There has to be a lot of flailing about. All the while, I should be screaming.
Of all the attack positions, this is probably the worst. Of course, a man can still rape you from behind, and it's difficult to counter, throw any punches, any strikes, any grabs from this position. Also, she can try and crawl away or snipe her away, but it's not likely to be effective. Strangely enough, the best option from here is probably to turn into the person, try and grab, make something vulnerable, go at his legs, go at his feet, grab his fingers, grab his toes, whatever you can do to fight. Start throwing those elbows and eye pokes in there whenever you can.
If the horrific situation should arise that you are attacked and you attempt one or many of these techniques and they fail you, understand that that is not your fault. It is always the fault of the rapist, never the victim. And the sad truth is, even if you practice these techniques, there's a really good chance they won't work. Still, practicing them, learning them, and attempting to apply them if that situation should happen gives you a much greater chance of successfully negating that attack than doing nothing at all. A common reaction after being attacked is to go home immediately and shower off. This is understandable. After a traumatic experience, home might seem like a safe place. And a lot of women want to shower because they want to wash the filth of that animal off their bodies. So this is an understandable reaction, and no one should be judged harshly for it. But it's not the best choice. The best choice is to go to the hospital, call the police on the way, tell them to meet you there, or have the hospital attendants call the police for you. When you get there, ask them to process you with a rape kit. Now, a lot of women will choose not to do this because they're still in shock, and they want to put it behind them. They want to forget about the experience. However capable they are of putting it behind them, going to the hospital and reporting the situation to the police isn't going to hinder that. In fact, it can help. A woman might be able to take some solace in knowing that she at least did her part in trying to ensure that this man never did this again. Be safe out there.